Alright, so today I've got to replace a fader on my D command. Myself, I was a total idiot and left a cup sitting on the desk right here, and it fell over and liquid went down in there. So luckily, most of the faders didn't get bothered, didn't really affect any electronics as far as I can tell. I did this actually a couple of months ago. I left it off for like a month just to let it all dry out. But now it's time to replace a fader. So that's what I'm about ready to do. All right, so a couple points that I want to draw attention to when doing this. As I start to take, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these screws you've got to take out to be able to get this whole section out. Now, you'll see here in a second. Well, I'll kind of fast forward this as I do it. Get all these bad boys out here. I don't know if I'm going to be fast forwarding through this or not. This is relatively quick. I'm not trying to make a super professional video right now. I'm just showing you how I'm going to go about it. I'm no expert at this at all. Trust me, I am no expert at any of this. But I've taken it out so far, and it looks like a relatively pretty easy fix, or replacement, I should say. Okay, so now that you've got that out, of course, you got to take the caps off. All 8 of those, and these are banks of 8. Now, one thing I noticed when I pulled this out the first time, it wanted to kind of fight me a little bit, so I wasn't sure if I could pull the whole unit out and keep it together, because I felt like I was pulling on some wires. But once I got it out, I actually took out each individual fader off of the plate here. And then I realized I probably could have done that. So now that I know that, I'm going to try that a little bit differently this time, just to see. And it's giving me quite a bit of resistance, probably more than I'm comfortable. So I'm not going to force that. So what I'm going to do right now is go ahead and remove all of these faders from the plate. I probably don't need to do this, but I'm not willing to kind of force all that through. And anyway, when I go to solder the other piece on anyway, I'm going to need to do that. All right, so that one went down in there. You can see how they're kind of dropping in there once I get these off. And no need to worry about that. There's nowhere for them to go. But this is a little bit tedious to some degree. Not really, not that much. And we're going to take all these out. So now that I realize this, I'm probably going to need to go out to the garage and get a pair of needle nose pliers, because I remember there's some plastic pieces down there that go in between the plate and the fader that have to go back into place, and it's easier just to take a set of needle nose pliers to go in and do that, if you know what I mean. So if you notice, I'm not taking out the screws towards the end, towards the bottom right now, because it's completely losing, the fader's dropping in there. So once I pull the plate out, it will be easy to get the rest of those out. See, some of them will just come out, but there's no need to kind of try and dig that out of there, because I know that once I take that plate out, if I'm cautious with it, I won't lose any of those screws. All right, don't want to touch my soldering iron over there. That might burn a little bit. There is only 2 wires that have to be soldered, that's it. This is pretty straightforward stuff. Nothing overly complicated. Now it's going to drop down in there. Let's see if I can just get that. There we go. That out. Let's move that fader up out of the way. Take that out of there maybe. These things are so small, I don't want to drop them down in there and then try to struggle to find them. Okay, so now I've got that out of there. This plate's going to come right off. Okay. And now that plate is off. That is moved over out of the way. As you can see here, my faders have dropped down in there. This is the fader in question right now. these are these little plastic pieces. I'll show you. If that happens to come off and you're trying to put that fader back in there, that's what you may need the needle nose pliers for. Now you can see here where it's actually got some room, so that should have come back, but it still would have been too difficult to do it. And so as you can see right here, I've got that red and black. This is magnetic, by the way, so keep that in mind. The red and black. So I'm going to disconnect this cable right here from there. All right, and then I'm going to desolder those two pieces. Let's see if I can put that down in there and let that set right there. And come in here, get my soldering iron in there, heat that up, and then pull that off. Come back under there. There we go, got that off right there, okay? So I'm actually gonna run out to my garage real quick and get something that's gonna help me. Well, it probably won't, it's probably too big. All right, so this is the old one, I'm gonna put that aside. All right, here I've got the new one, as an example. See how that goes. I've got the new one here. So in case you forget which one goes on, the red one goes on the rear tab and the right one goes, or the black one goes on the front tab. So we're going to tin these real quick. If you're not familiar with tinning, you just want to make sure that you get a little bit of solder on each one of these ends, and you just heat it from one side, put the solder in there. Get yourself a little bit of solder in there. Okay. Same thing. I'll see if I can actually move this over to where you guys can see that somewhat. And let that, see if I can find a way to get that to rest. Okay. And then I'll come back over here and come from this side. And I'm just all I'm doing is just heating one side of that to ensure that I've already got some solder in there. So that when I go to put the wires on there, it's good to go. I also want to do the same thing with these. I want to retin these again. And again, all I'm doing is just putting, try and get some of that old solder off a little bit if I can. Clean that up somewhat. Okay, there we go. I've got, I don't know if you can see my thing off the side, but I can brush some of that solder off of there. And then I'm going to come back and retin these again. And all I'm doing is just putting a little bit of solder on the wire so that it'll automatically make good contact when it's time to do that, okay? So remember again, if you're curious, the black goes on the farthest towards the front, red on the front. As we're doing this here, I'll just kind of try to set that right in there a little bit. Now, let's see how I'm going to hold this to get that in there. Probably going to, about knock my soldering iron over. Okay, from this side, I'll just try to go in there. I'm going to do that. I'm going to try to do the red one first, because that'll make it easier to get to the back side. And I shouldn't need any solder when I do this because I've tinned both of those together. So that should be relatively easy. Obviously, some of the things is holding these pieces in place. Let me move that out of my way. I don't know if you can even see what I just moved, but it's the holder for my my soldering iron. Okay. Now, if you notice, I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but I've got a little extra solder on there. I'm going to clean that off. Okay. Don't need that bulk solder. Got that cleaned off. That off to the side. Come in here and then I'll try and straighten that wire up a little bit because I want to be able to just kind of push that straight in there and not have to go at an angle. So that's at a little bit of an angle from where it was on before. Might as well go ahead and straighten up the black one while I'm at it. Get that black one out of the way. Now coming back over here, I'm going to heat it from the back side. Push that wire in there, let it go, hold, and done. Okay. Same thing over here. Get this lined up here. I'm going to, oh, this one's a little bit harder. And getting that at the right angle is helpful. See, I don't know if you guys completely see all of this. Hopefully you can tell that this is somewhat a little there. Maybe that'll help hold that. Nope. Not as much as I thought. That might help somewhat. And let's get... Nope. This is where a pair of tweezers would be helpful, and to be able to hold that in place. Try and get my finger over top of that to hold that. Let's see here. Hang on. I told you I'm not a pro at this. Somebody's used to doing this would have already had this done by now. I don't know if you can hear my dogs barking in the background, but oh, come on. There we go. Okay, we've got that one done, so we want to check our solder points to make sure we're good. We're good there. Then we can go put our clip back on here. Can't remember which way that went. Let's take a look at that and see. Looks like the grooves are on the outside. Let's see that one more time. Yeah, the grooves with no metal, metal showing are on the outside, which means that that's going to go on like so. Well, this is kind of kicking my butt, ladies and gentlemen. There we go. That's back in there. And so we should have a working fader at this point. Again, I think if I go in there and I go at an angle, is that going to work? Is that going to be the problem? I think that's going to be the problem. Some of them, it's the clip. Okay. Okay, so before I do anything else, I'm going to turn this on just to see if it's working. And I'm going to put it in what's called Vegas mode. You can't see me from over there. I'm over here right now. But let's see. All right, Houston, I think we've got success on that fader. Well, okay, now I'm sitting back down. I had to go over to the main unit over there that's out of camera. But you can obviously see that fader's working fine the way it should right now, so we've got some success. I do have a chance. I ultimately have 2 more backup faders. I have a potential issue on another fader, so I'm going to kind of leave this disassembled for a second, pull up Pro Tools, and then see how that works. Now, I may not be able to get that back in there without... I've got to be able to. I'm gonna try to see if I can figure out how to get that back in there without having to take those faders back off again. There's a little area down there. It's got to clear just a little bit, but I have to imagine this is designed to be able to pull this out, be able to just undo all the cables. You know, those 4 pin connections on the back of it. Be able to do those and keep the faders on here while you replace whichever ones you have to replace. So we're going to put this on pause for a second, and then I'll come back after I do some tests in Pro Tools. Okay? See you in a minute. Okay, I hit a 30-minute limit on my camera up there, so I don't know how far I got with that. So some of this is redundant. It's redundant, so we've removed these 5 screws here to be able to get the plate off. So I'm going to pull this back out of here. I'm removing the 3rd one in, fader number 3. It'll be easy pulling that out of there. Just take it nice and slow. You might have to do a little wiggle back and forth. You pull it forward this way. That is what that's designed to do. Okay, take this and ultimately get my cables out of there. You can just pull them out. You've got a little bit of gap in there to be able to turn it around. turn it around like so. Replacing this one here. This is the third fader in. So pull that back around. And we're going to replace this one. So like I was saying before, I got my camera cut off. This is now the third fader we've replaced on this during this little exercise. And you have to ask yourself, Barry, hey, that beverage you were consuming, was it that good? It was worth 150 bucks? And I hate to tell you, I should have left that in there before I took that off. Was it worth 150 bucks? And I have to tell you, no, it wasn't. But then again, too, I'm getting 3 brand new ones. If you notice again, I'm just putting my soldering iron on the back end of that tab and pulling those off. I'm going to use my soldering iron to clean off that excess solder there. Basically, I'm going to transfer it. I'm transferring it from the wire over. I got a little bit on my hand. From the wire over to the soldering iron. Okay. Then we're going to get rid of that. Then we've got our new one we're going to put in here. So let's put that in like so. Flip this back over. Line up our screws. Or line up our screw holes with the holes in the plate. And it should be easier than this, but for whatever reason it's giving me a little bit of difficulty. Now we've got this. Go into there. Put that on. Okay, my other screw up there. This one in here. Again, you want to be cautious. You don't want to end up losing those screws down in the belly of the beast down below. Okay. All right. So now we've got to replace these wires. Again, like I said before, I'm going to take these and go at a 90-degree angle. Okay. So I'm going to re-tin these wires again. Remember, re-tinning. I'm going to keep saying this over and over again so this sinks in. You need some fresh solder on the end, on both what you're soldering from and to. So in other words, this wire, this exposed wire here, is going to be soldered to, soldered to the tip down here. Okay. Now this is brand new, so this doesn't have. You know what I just did? This is why you need attention to detail, and it was easily to figure out as, I didn't finish taking this one out. That one I just put in there was the one that I just took out. So all right, so let me unscrew that again. Boy, I feel stupid. Woo! I guess I didn't get enough sleep last night. I have no problem showing my stupid mistakes, none whatsoever. If we can't learn from each other and learn from each other's mistakes, what does that say about us as people, right? So, all right, so the easiest way to know that you've got the new one is that it's never had any solder on it. I'm gonna go deal with my dogs. I'll be right back. I'm dealing with my dogs. Okay. All right, so let's put this in here. Get our screw holes lined up. I typically have a good system of working so those kind of mistakes don't happen, but I didn't have that today. Again, that came out. Got to watch that. All right, so go back over like so, and now we're ready to tin the tabs on the fader. Again, I cleaned my soldering iron off. I got myself a little bit of solder I'm putting on the back side of it. Transfer that heat through. And here. Okay, got plenty of solder on that one. And from this side, the trick is to have a little bit of fresh solder on the soldering tip. Then you can get it in there. And that's what I didn't have just a second ago. Alright, so now we're going to go the red to the back, and we're going to go in this way. See, again, I don't know if you can see that or not, but this right here is bent at a 90, hopefully that camera up there can see it. It's bent at a 90-degree angle. I'm sure that's not going to pick up in the camera, but what are you going to do? Clean the end of my soldering tip off. Give myself a little bit of fresh solder on the end of it. And then now we're going to come from the back of it, get that out of the way. So that way I've just got my red wire there. Heat the back of it, take that wire through there. Through. Okay. That's not through enough for me, so I'm going to heat that and go a little bit further in there. There we go. At the end a little bit, I'll just take that and bend that up some. Not that it would hit anything, but I don't want that to be accidentally grounded out. Okay? So again, now we're going to take the black wire and come from the back side of it, from the end coming out. Ooh. Clean that off, put myself a little fresh solder on my soldering tip. Ouch. See what's happened there is this has become frayed. A little hot there. That had become frayed, and so because it was frayed, I wasn't able to get it straight through. Some of the frayed pieces were pushing back. Okay. So let's try that again. A little bit more. That's one down there. I know you can't see what I'm looking at. I can barely see what I'm looking at. But there's some of the frays of the wire had come out, and so there's obviously a certain amount of opening in that tab down there for that wire to get back through. I'm going to have to hang on, let me try and clean that off a little bit. I may have to re-splice that. This one, for whatever reason, is making, there we go. Again, I told you I'm not great at this. But anyway, I've got a solid connection there. Okay, that wasn't as pretty as it should have been, but it got the job done. So again, we're going to put this back on here. Snip this on. Try to get our wires lined up as best we can. Try and get them in here position. So that seems to be the key. I know you can't see what I'm looking at, but I'm just getting those wires to go down into the opening and already kind of getting as much of them down in there as I can so none of them are in my way when I'm trying to push this through. Because I think that's the key to this. I think some of those are just getting in the way a little bit. Okay, that explains that one. That's what's going on with that right there. Hang on. There we go. That one out of the way. That was hung up over one of the lips on there. right, there we go. And so that's what it is. You want to be able to get it in there, go at it at an angle, so you so it causes that the bottom of those connectors where those wires are in the back of the fader to slide underneath that PCB board down there. You're not going to be able to see this, but I'm going to turn Pro Tools back on. I'm going to turn these back on just to make sure that I'm not feeling the resistance, but you're not going to see it on the screen there. So, okay, so that's moving good now. It's moving fluid, 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 fluid. Yeah, I think we're in a good spot now. I think I've replaced all the ones that need to be replaced. Sorry, move that out of the way over there. Okay, so I think we're good. So hopefully this helps you understand how to replace a fader on a D command or probably any control surface. Again, I've left all of my mistakes in there. Hopefully you haven't laughed at me too much, but I wouldn't blame you 1 second if you did. So anyway, hope you guys have a great day. Thanks a lot for watching. I appreciate it.